I was 22, traveling alone to Halifax, just looking for a few quiet days. After wrapping up a major project, I needed a break from people, screens, and deadlines. Life had become overwhelmingly fast. Every day felt like a blur of meetings, files, presentations, and constant noise. I was craving silence. One morning, I made a sudden decision. Alina, you need to get away. Take some time just for yourself. Halifax had always held a special place in my heart. The coastline, the old architecture, the endless blue sky, it all made my problems feel like they belonged to another life. I booked a room for 4 nights at a mid-range hotel near the waterfront. The hotel had glowing reviews online. People described it as quiet, safe, clean, and excellent service. I arrived on a Friday afternoon. The lobby was strangely silent. Just one receptionist behind the counter, who smiled, completed my check-in, and handed me the key to room 407 on the 4th floor. The room was simple, but spotless. Through the window, I could see a sliver of the harbor, and it immediately made me feel at peace. I unpacked, took a shower, and lay on the bed for a while. I felt an odd mix of exhaustion and calm, almost as if the room itself had welcomed me. That night, I went for a walk along the boardwalk. The sea breeze, the distant city lights, and the faint hum of the town, it all felt like a dream. I dined alone at a local pub, then returned to my hotel around 8 p.m. After another quick shower, I changed and settled into bed with a book. Outside, a soft rain had begun to fall, and its gentle patter against the window added a sort of magic to the quiet room. But as the night wore on, I began to notice something odd, like someone walking up and down the hallway outside my room. Footsteps, a subtle rustling near my door, like someone stopping, thinking, then moving on. I told myself it was probably just another guest, but deep down, something felt off. The next morning, I got up early and went downstairs for breakfast. I picked a table by the window where the morning sun spilled in. A few minutes later, a woman walked over, maybe around 38 years old. Calm and composed, she asked politely, "Mind if I sit here?" I smiled. Of course not. She sat down, and after a brief pause, she said quietly, "Good morning, Alina." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Alina was my name, but I hadn't told anyone here. Not last night, not even during check-in. I asked cautiously, Do we know each other?" She smiled as if my question was unnecessary. "We spoke last night, remember?" she said casually. A chill ran through me. "No, we didn't," I replied, trying to stay calm. "I didn't talk to anyone." She just chuckled softly and went silent again, like she knew I didn't remember. But she also knew she was right. That encounter left a strange sense of unease in me. After breakfast, I walked straight to the front desk. "Can guests see each other's names somehow?" I asked. The clerk shook his head immediately. "No, ma'am. All our records are digital and secure. We never share guest information." I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut. Later that afternoon, I saw her again, on the 4th floor hallway, near the end, standing by the vending machine. Only, she wasn't using it. She was just staring, holding something in her hand, maybe an old photo or a piece of paper, and staring at it like it had a heartbeat. I walked past her without a word, entered my room, locked the door, and bolted it shut. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. The room was completely still. I checked the door, still locked, but I felt something, as if someone was just outside, standing silently, breathing. I turned on the light, waited. Eventually, everything felt normal again. I went back to sleep. The next morning, the woman was gone, like she had never existed. At checkout, I asked again, "Is there any way someone could know another guest's name? Through Wi-Fi, bookings, anything?" The staff repeated what I'd already been told. "Impossible. Everything is private and secure." A month later, the hotel sent a follow-up email. I replied briefly, mentioning the woman, how she said my name even though I hadn't told anyone. They never responded. To this day, I still don't know who she was, how she knew my name, when or where we supposedly spoke, or if it was all just in my head. But ever since that trip, I've never used my real full name when booking a hotel again. And now, years later, whenever I stay at a hotel alone, that old question rises again. Does someone already know who I am? Is that woman still waiting in some other hallway for another Alina? Sometimes we think we're escaping to be alone, But some places already recognize us, long before we arrive. And those who dwell there, they don't just see us, they know us. That woman who knew my name, maybe I wasn't the first Alina in that room, and maybe I won't be the last. About a year ago, my husband and I went to spend a weekend in Los Angeles. We booked a stylish little boutique hotel just off Sunset Boulevard. It was cozy, aesthetic, and quiet, exactly what we wanted. After a night out with friends, we returned to the hotel around 2:30 a.m. My husband, who's a very heavy sleeper, passed out almost instantly. I usually have light sleep, but that night I fell asleep surprisingly fast. At exactly 3:30 a.m., I woke up. The room was lit, which was strange. We'd turned off all the lights before going to bed. The light was coming from the hallway, and at the foot of our bed, a man was standing. He wasn't hotel staff. He wore a red plaid shirt, had thick black hair, and a heavy beard. He just stood there quietly, and then said, "I need to talk to Drake." My body froze. We didn't know anyone named Drake, but the way he said it, it was like he belonged in that room. I raised my voice and said, "You need to leave, now." The sound woke up my husband. 6'5", broad and intimidating. The moment he sat up, the man turned and ran. He slammed the door shut behind him as he bolted down the hallway. My husband wanted to chase after him, but I stopped him. We didn't know who that man was, or if he was alone. We called the front desk immediately, but no one answered. About 20 minutes later, we got dressed and went downstairs. The manager insisted that the security cameras showed nothing. He claimed no one had entered our hallway. I didn't believe him. He offered us a free night as compensation, said it must have been a drunken guest. But one thought kept echoing in my head. What if I hadn't woken up? From that night on, I always double-lock hotel doors. Always. And I double-check. The first time I saw the stranger, my throat went dry. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I just kept repeating one question in my mind. Who is he, and how did he get in here? When my husband Tom sat up and stared at him, the man didn't hesitate. He turned and sprinted out, slamming the door behind him. We sat in stunned silence for several seconds. Then Tom asked, "Did you lock the door?" I nodded, but we both knew. I hadn't latched the deadbolt. The next morning, we went to speak to the manager again. He brushed it off, said it was probably someone drunk who got the wrong room. But I knew that wasn't it. We switched rooms. That night before going to bed, I checked everything, every corner. Then I noticed something strange on the inside of the door. Scratches, deep ones, as if someone had clawed or carved at the wood. I turned on the light to look closer. There was a word scratched into the wood. Drake. My heart stopped. That second night, I again fell asleep early. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to soft noises. It sounded like footsteps inside the walls, faint scratching sounds above the ceiling. Tom was still asleep. I didn't move. I barely even breathed. Then suddenly, the wardrobe creaked open, by itself. I jumped and turned on the light. Nothing there. But on the floor, I saw a wet footprint, barefoot, as if someone had just walked through the room. The next morning, I told Tom, "We have to leave." But he didn't believe me. He thought it was all in my head. So I spoke to one of the older hotel staff, a man named Marco. When I mentioned room 207, his expression changed. He leaned closer and whispered, "That room's been sealed off before. Years ago, someone died there." I swallowed hard and asked, "Do you know his name?" He nodded slowly. "Drake Simmons." We decided we'd check out the next morning. But that night, it happened again. 3:30 a.m., a knock at the door. Slow, steady, as if the person knocking knew we were inside. We didn't answer. We just sat in the bed, listening. The knocking stopped after a minute. We didn't sleep again. But in the morning, when we opened the door, there was a folded note on the floor, white paper, one sentence. "I told you, I need to talk to Drake." We checked out that morning. But that weekend changed something in me. Now every time I stay in a hotel, I check the door first. I always deadbolt, twice, And every single night, before I go to sleep, I still wonder, what if I hadn't woken up that night? I was 20 on a writing assignment in Winnipeg. My magazine booked me a modest hotel in the heart of downtown. 4th floor, my room overlooked the alley. The moment I stepped into room 420, I felt something was off. The air was damp, as if the windows hadn't been opened in years. A stale odor lingered, aged wood, mold, and something else I couldn't describe. It felt like someone was watching me. There was an old mirror on the wall across the bed, its reflection so faint that even my shadow seemed blurred. The curtains were a deep navy blue lined with strange scratch-like patterns, as if someone had clawed at them in desperation. Above the bed, an old wall clock ticked steadily, but the hands never moved. They were stuck. 3:13 a.m. I told myself it was just fatigue. Travel, new city, solitude. It was all weighing on me. But then came the dreams. In the dream, I was in the same room, but everything was upside down. The bed was on the ceiling. Bloodstains marred the floor. I peeked out the window, and the alley was gone. Only darkness. And in that darkness, something was moving. Slowly, deliberately, as if it was coming for me. I woke up on the floor, under the bed. For real. My blanket was sprawled across the room, like someone had dragged me in my sleep. By the 3rd night, I started hearing whispers from the wall. "Leave now. This room is ours. You shouldn't be here." I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. But the next morning, something was scrawled in red outside my door. "Leave 4:20. I rushed to the reception, demanding a room change. The receptionist, with a strange smirk, replied, "Sir, our hotel only has rooms from 1 to 100. Room 420? That room burned down last year." The floor dropped from under my feet. "No, I checked into 420 myself." He looked at me, concerned. "Sir, maybe you need to see a doctor. You've been sitting in the lobby for 3 days straight. We never gave you any room." I ran out and climbed the stairs, heading to the floor where I knew I'd been staying. The elevator refused to go to the 4th floor, so I took the stairs. When I reached the top, the 4th floor was abandoned. Burned walls, broken doors, ash and soot everywhere. And at the very end, a charred, blackened door. Barely legible were the melted letters. Room 420, ... The door creaked open on its own. Inside, my bag, my files, my blanket, the same mirror. But in the mirror, it wasn't me. It was someone else staring back at me. It was someone else staring back at me. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut. The lights went out. Only the ticking of that old clock remained. This time, it was ticking. 3:14, 3:15, 3:16. The air thickened with every tick, heavy, suffocating. Then, it appeared, a black silhouette, faceless, only eyes, red, burning. "You stepped into my room. Now you can't leave." I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my throat. My lungs burned, my feet trembled. The room spun, and then, darkness. I woke up in a hospital bed. The doctor said, "You've been in a coma for 6 days." But in my hand was a key. Room 420. I never gave it to anyone. And even now, whenever it's 3:13 a.m., I hear the same whisper, "Come back." Our room is still empty. Some rooms are meant only to be seen, never lived in.